Hi, it's Christina here with Just Own It, and I'm here with Abra Pappa of Nutritious America. And hi,
Hi, Christina.
um,
Happy Sunday.
happy Sunday. So we have so much fun stuff to talk about. Let's start with talking about Nutritious America and what that is and
Okay.
what people will find on your website.
Sure. So Nutritious America it's my baby. It's my baby. It's a company. I actually started it with my best friend from childhood about 5 or 6 years ago.
Hmm.
And it is now mine solely. It's my little baby, and it's my sort of wellness website that's full of all of my yummy, healthy, amazing recipes and my blog posts about different ways that people can access health and bring it into their life in a way that's accessible and fun and I think interesting.
Hmm.
I also have some guest posts, some guest bloggers on Nutritious America, my clients. A few of my clients have some series on the blog about their journey towards weight loss and wellness and all of the trials and tribulations and fun and silliness that can include. Yeah, it's just a sort of, if I do video content, you'll find that on Nutritious America. It's just a portal for all things that I think are important in regards to taking the journey towards health and wellness.
Cool. So how did you start your journey into health and wellness?
It's been an interesting journey. I think a lot of people come to become practitioners in the wellness world because they've had their own like mega aha, right? That
Hmm.
I need to shift something in me. And I'm not dissimilar in that. But I think what has made my path a little bit more unique and interesting is that I actually grew up in an incredibly healthy household. My parents were total hippy dippies, and I grew up eating, I mean, literally, we used to call them grass sandwiches. My mom would put sprouts on sandwiches,
Uh-huh.
and it looked like grass. And,
What else
she
was in
made
sprout sandwiches or the grass sandwiches?
sometimes it was some cheese from the farm,
Hmm.
and the bread was always homemade. My mom made her own yogurt, her own bread. She had like mason jars of like herbs and tinctures for when we got sick.
It
I was
sounds so
never.
good.
It was so. Now it sounds amazing, right?
Yeah,
But back then she was a total wacko. Like it was not as embraced in the '70s and early '80s as it is now.
sure.
But it was a cool upbringing. Like I had a really interesting understanding of food, and I come from a really long line of culinary professionals. Like my ancestors way, way back were chefs for royalty in Hungary, and food has always been a really integral part of family bonding and connection
Hmm.
going back generations and generations. So in addition to the sort of health food, there's also this other element of cooking and this deep connection to nourishment and cooking your own food and what that means. And my mom, as hippy dippy as she was also this incredible, incredible cook. And, would cook from Bon Appetit in the 80s, which was remember it was like gourmet. People
Yeah.
would call that gourmet. And yeah, so
Did
there's this
you
sort of,
grow up, did you cook with her? Did you get an interest in it right
yes.
away?
Right away. So, all of my siblings, I have four siblings, two
Hmm.
sisters and three siblings, two sisters and a brother. There's four
There's
of
four
us.
of you. Okay.
Four of us, yes. So, the girls, not so much the guys. It was very sort of like old school. The women cooked and the men did not.
Hmm.
So yeah, I grew up in the kitchen. I grew up cooking with my mom, cooking with my great aunt Mamie. She's probably my greatest food influence. And really from a very young age, we learned how to access food, how to cook food for ourselves, how to cook food for our families. And it was absolutely 100% an interest in mine right from the start. And then as I sort of went on my own journey of growing up and becoming a woman and moving away, when I went to college, I think that was some of the first times that I started to understand what junk food was,
Hmm.
you know, like really understand what
Did
packaged
you,
processed
when you
foods.
first had it, were you like, this is amazing? Or did you feel how what it was doing negatively?
I didn't feel it immediately. I definitely didn't feel it. And I remember as a child, I had a really close friend growing up, and her mom, when I would sleep over her house, I used to love when her mom would pack my lunch because she would make bologna sandwiches on white bread, and we would have tasty cake cupcakes. And it was like, that was so incredible to me that I was able to have this like junky lunch. And I don't think it's that I disliked the healthy food that we were served. I just think it was a novelty.
Yeah.
It was fun because it was a novelty. So when I started to eat these foods on my own, like when I was making the decision of what I was going to eat when I was in college, I did embrace the junk food a little bit. It was, it was a foreign object. And I think looking back now, I could see where, and this is where my transformation started to begin, or my sort of interest in wellness, it'll all make sense. I started now I understand that there was a bit of an addictive tendency around food for me.
Yep.
And that wasn't something that I experienced in my home, which now I understand because all of those foods served me well. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I introduced some of these like junkier foods, I remember my college roommate had cheese. Remember that cheese in a can, that spray cheese?
Oh, Cheese Whiz.
Yeah, that's what it's called. Yeah.
Of course.
Cheese Whiz.
Cheese Whiz.
Okay. I couldn't think of the name of it. So that was like such a bizarre concept to me, right? We would have like cheese from the farm, like real cheese. But I ate it, and I ate it on like the Ritz crackers that were under her bed. And I was definitely interested in those foods. And looking back now, I see that that was maybe the start for me of how foods can be so addictive in my system. Mm-hmm. So, then I sort of went through college, and I was fine. I was a theater major in college and a dance major, and I was dancing like 20 some odd hours a week. And so, I was very active, and even though I was eating some crappy foods, I still had enough sensibility around food and taking care of my body that I was okay. Then I moved to New York City. And then I started working in restaurants. And, within about 5 years of being in New York, I put on a lot of weight. And I was feeling so out of sorts with myself and my body, and depressed, and, working crazy hours and double shifts, 12, 14 hours without a break, without any food break. And there was this real battle going on between myself and my body and food. Mm-hmm. And it was, I don't know, it was one of those days. It was just one of those moments. I remember waking up so extraordinarily unhappy, overweight, exhausted. Like it literally hurt to wake up and walk to the bathroom in the morning because my body was just spent. It was just done. And, I was auditioning and trying to make it in musical theater and not doing well and just feeling so unhappy. And I went for a walk and I came across this like brochure about nutrition, and I was like, that's it. I'm done. I have to make a change, and it has to happen now. And I literally, that night, there was like an open house for this school. And that night I went to the open house and I signed up, and I was like, I got to make a change. And I think that was the first for me. That was my first like real internal personal shift to change what was happening in my own life. Mm-hmm. And then I started to take care of myself, which was a completely foreign concept at that point. I had spent like nearly 10 years just sort of denying what my needs were in nutritionally, emotionally, biologically. And it was a long process. This was not an overnight success story at all. It was a really long process to learn how to care for myself and how to nourish myself. And as I went through the process of really deeply understanding nutrition and understanding how food affects you, and then using myself as the guinea pig, right? Like trying all of these different sort of diets, diet in the sense of like, I'm going to try to be vegan right now. How does that feel in my body? What does it feel like if I just eat raw food for a little while? How does that feel in my body? What if I focus on protein? What if I do this? And really understanding what food served me on a very deep level. And then I had to do some really, really deep work to look at the addiction. And I did. I was, I really had a pretty strong addiction to food. And that was all emotional stuff. Mm-hmm. So that sort of brought me into this world. And through my own journey, I think I've crafted a practice that is very much focused on helping women go on the journey too. Helping women who are, most of my clients have at least 40 plus pounds to lose, up to 150 pounds to lose, and beginning that journey from a place of immense self-care, immense love, incredible positivity, and being able to just kind of put on a new lens to look at your life and your relationship with food.
Yeah.
So that's my journey.
What do you think when you first made that decision to make the change and you went to the nutrition school and you started really looking at things and discovering what worked? What do you think, was there one thing that felt like, oh, this is the biggest shift, or this is something that I really need to, above all else, keep this in mind? Was there something that was the most?
I mean, I think it's, yes. And I think it's mindfulness and awareness. And I think that was the hugest shift. And when I really understood what that meant, that changed everything for me. Mm-hmm. That changed everything for me. It changed every meal. It changed every bite of food. Mm-hmm. It just changed everything. And that too, though, although I would say that's the biggest shift, it's something that I have to work on and practice every single day. Sometimes I call myself like a nutrient collector. I get really geeked out about how nutritionally powerful my plate of food is. So that kind of encompasses a lot. You know, I really shy away from strict dogmas around food. For me, that has never worked. What I embrace is certainly plant powerful. You know, I think we're going to get the majority of our nutrients are going to be found in plants. So our dark leafy greens, you know, certainly like high nutrient fruits. I do eat some grains, but I do eat some animal protein, high quality animal protein. I love seafood, but it's really centered around this idea of how many nutrients can I consume that make me feel amazing. And I have to tell you that, you know, my sort of like the way that I eat shifts. It shifts a lot. It shifts seasonally. Mm-hmm. It shifts depending on, you know, what's going on in my life. It shifts depending on where I'm traveling to. And I think that it takes a while to sort of get to the place that you can feel comfortable around food to allow that sort of shifting and that flexibility to happen.
Yeah.
But that's when I feel the best. Like when I'm able to wake up and say, this morning, what I feel like having is X, Y, and Z. And X, Y, and Z are always going to be nutrient dense, beautiful, amazing, you know, natural foods as close to the earth as possible. It's always going to encompass that. But what it is will shift. It will shift sometimes daily.
I love that.
I have a lot of clients that can eat the same 5 things for like 6 months on end. That is not me at all. I love flavor. Mm-hmm. I love playing in the kitchen. I get so inspired by new ingredients. I'm so inspired by food from around the world, from different cultures. So, you know, for me, it's really important to have some of that flexibility and to not have some strict dogma that I follow, you know, that I am either whatever label it might be, that I am a vegan or that I am a vegetarian or I am paleo or I am gluten-free. I really, you know, I embrace food on all levels that serves me.
I think that's really important. We're constantly changing. So then how do you start with a client comes to you and says, I'm unhappy, food's not working for me, I need to lose 50 pounds. Where do you start?
Such a good question. It really is. It's such a good question. Starting is really just beginning to look at the food. And I really try to meet my clients where they are. And everybody's going to come to the table with a completely different understanding of food, understanding of nutrition, understanding of their own bodies, a different sense of willingness around change. So I really do like to meet them where they are. And that bit is a process. You know, honestly, I think change begins by allowing small shifts to happen. And for me, one of the biggest mistakes I see when people come into a nutrition program is that they're ready for this like massive wave of change, right? Like, let's just change it all right now. And I think on some levels they're expecting that. Like from the first, I can't tell you how many people will come to me and say, well, I got all the junk food out of my system. Like I was binge eating for 2 weeks waiting for this appointment. As if like they're going to walk in my door and then I'm going to say, now all you're going to have is grass and sticks. And let's begin. You know what I mean? So I love small shifts. And so sometimes, honestly, for some people, it may begin with just focus on getting in your, 8 to 10 glasses of water. That's all I want you to think about this week. Every day, get in that water. For some people, they're ready for greater shifts, so we'll focus on adding in some real nutrient dense vegetables, focusing on 3 recipes for the week, and sort of beginning the path, the path to health and wellness. So I think it shifts a lot depending on the person, but it really does for me, it begins with allowing some change to occur, allowing little, it's like 1 degree,
Yeah.
1 degree at a time, 1 degree at a time until we get to the place that we're able to embrace more.
Sure. And that's accessible then. And then people can,
Exactly.
It's doable.
It's doable, and it has to be doable. And that's one of the frustrating things about nutrition and people talking about weight loss is that it's always this like very strict diet that you have to go on to begin this process. And for some people that's necessary. For some people, like a real structural change is necessary to begin to wrap your head around food shifts. But for the most part, it really is about allowing, opening up and allowing some of this beautiful food into your life, adding in the beautiful food into your life so we can kind of crowd out the things that are less supportive.
Sure. I know something that I struggle with is sugar addiction, and I'm sure everybody struggles with it in some way because it's everywhere. It's in so many things. You can't really get away from it unless you really focus on it and you're really aware. So for me, I feel like I need to, if I see myself getting really bad as far as having more sugar, which feeds the need to have more sugar, it becomes this uncontrollable monster. So I have to step back and be like, okay, I am completely cutting this out for a little while. I mean, do you think that there's a way to embrace something like that without cutting it out completely?
Such a good question. That is such a good question, and it is a massive problem. I mean, a huge problem.
It's huge.
Huge problem. So I think that there is a bit of a variable depending on the person and honestly, depending on the level of sugar addiction, and then depending on what's going on for them from a health perspective. So I always kind of look at that umbrella of like, what are the underlying causes to your sugar addiction? When you're looking at sugar addiction, I like to begin by trying to understand on a deeper level what's going on biologically. So, can there be potential blood sugar imbalance issues? Are there hormonal imbalance issues? Why do you have the intense sugar cravings? And I think sometimes if we can look from a biological perspective, it helps us understand the emotional bit too. So it's always 2-tiered for me. It's never just like, I am a sugar addict because I'm addicted to it emotionally. There's usually something going on biologically, like a nutritional deficiency. There's something going on that if we can look at that can help to sort of balance out that addiction piece. But I think what you're asking, which is it's such an interesting point in regards to food in general and seeking out our healthiest, happiest self, is there a time that it's appropriate to say, I'm really struggling with sugar, and I find that I do better when it's out of my life, but then I have to be sort of strict and dogmatic about it, right? And this is where the dichotomy comes in, because I'm saying I don't like a strict dogmatic structure, but yet there are times that is so appropriate and so peaceful and healing to let go of sugar specifically, to let go of something that can have this, like, it's like the chains, like the shackles on you.
Yeah.
So I tell my clients that there's so much freedom in structure. And I know that sounds crazy, like it doesn't make any, but there really is. That sometimes when you do allow yourself to have a bit of that structure, it is so freeing and so peaceful to just say, I'm going to step away from this. Now, with that said, just from a more kind of nutritional standpoint, if you're going through the process of detoxing from sugar, taking it all out completely, like going cold turkey, doesn't typically work.
Yeah.
So we still want to have some sweetness, if you will. And, that can come in the form of sweet vegetables. That can come in the form of like fruits. But like for people that say, I'm a sugar addict, I'm going to stop eating fruit. I'm going to stop eating sweet potatoes. Carrots are too sweet too. You'll have a backlash. That'll last about 24 hours. From a biological perspective, when you're looking at balance in our diet, first of all, you crave what you eat. So like you said, the more you eat, the more you're going to crave. Mm-hmm. And that is so, so true with sugar. So the more that it's in your diet, the more you're going to need it and you're going to want it. Nutritionally, what I find is that when you're looking at balance, if you have a diet that's very, very heavy in animal protein, in salt, in processed packaged foods, naturally your body is going to crave the opposite of that, which is sugar, because that's how it's looking for balance. So it's kind of like if you picture a scale, right? On one side is like the heavy, this is a macrobiotic principle of food. It's yin and yang. I mean, it's the system of opposites. So they have what's called yang foods, which are salt, the ultimate yang food, salt. The ultimate yin food is sugar. Mm-hmm. The more salt foods or what's in that category, which is, like I said, heavy animal proteins are certainly there. The more of those, the package, the process, the chemicals, the more of those foods in your life, the more your body is going to look to balance that scale. And the way it's looking to balance that scale is by sugar. So it's going to spark those cravings. So, the more that we can eat naturally balanced foods, the easier it is to stop that craving cycle. So naturally balanced foods are things like dark leafy greens, having some grains for some people, more of the plant-based foods, I think helps with that sugar piece. But then on the emotional side, and I do find with sugar, there's a lot of emotional sparks. I think we do crave sweetness in our life. And, when you're extremely stressed out, when we both live in New York City, just the energy of this city alone, I think sparks our souls and our bodies to crave sugar. Because it's this we're in this really hyper stimulated state on a daily basis, 24/7. It's like this kind of crazy state. Well, that sugar gives us that kind of feeling, right? It kind of gives us that it's like that lift that we're looking for. Mm-hmm. And so I think that there's a little bit of a balance there from an emotional perspective. And understanding that piece of how else, yoga is such a wonderful, for people with sugar cravings, I think yoga is such an incredible practice because it helps to bring you back to center without needing that artificial piece. For me, ultimately, health is about seeking balance. It is about having a very balanced state.
I love that. And I do love a lot of the macrobiotic principles. I think that it's definitely an important thing to look at when you're starting to learn about what works for you.
I agree.
So let's talk about cooking and your favorite recipes.
It's a hard one for me to answer because it's very rare that I make the same recipe twice.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I love to play. I love to play in the kitchen. It's funny, some of the recipes on Nutritious America, I'll have clients or friends say, oh my gosh, I've made that 15 times. And I'm like, I've made that once, and then blogged about it and put it up there for you. So I'm glad you're still making it. But I really love to play, and I get so inspired from thousands and thousands of different sources that it's sort of hard for me to say what my favorite thing to cook is. I would say my favorite thing to cook is to be inspired by ingredients and then just go to town. I was at the Union Square Green Market last week, and it was, oh my God, spring is literally, I could weep. Looking at the vegetables, it makes me weep. I think that they're so extraordinarily beautiful. It just warms my heart. So I was totally enamored by these gorgeous, gorgeous turnips. And I just played with turnips all week long.
How does one cook a turnip?
Long. I love them roasted. I think that's my favorite. But these are they're tiny Japanese turnips. So raw, they were incredible. Shaved in a salad with mint and olive oil and lemon juice, phenomenal. So, so delicious. But roasted, I love to roast turnips with Chinese 5-spice powder. Have you ever used that?
No.
Oh my gosh, it's this really, really yummy spice blend. It has sort of some warm aromatics, some cinnamon, and there's just a little hint of spice. I think there's cumin in it. It's this beautiful spice blend. But on turnips, it's extraordinary. So Chinese 5-spice powder and a little bit of coconut palm sugar, which is the natural sweetener that I'm in love with right now. So that gets a little bit caramelized, like warm and spicy. Oh my God, they're delicious.
I have to make
so oh, it's so good. But I love cooking with, I mean, I really do love cooking with herbs and spices. I do. I'm very into flavor. Fresh herbs, 100%, especially now through spring and summer. That's my favorite thing. It's just once a week to grab a new bunch of whatever it may be. Like I'll get one herb a week and then find a way to put it into everything I'm cooking. And then I love dried spices. Love, love, love dried spices. Indian spices and smoked paprika from Spain I love. I found fresh turmeric recently, and I was so super psyched about it. Have you ever used fresh?
No. How do you do it? You shave it?
It looks like ginger. It looks just like a ginger root, but the inside is like that vibrant, bright orange. So yeah, you can chop it just like ginger. You can like grate it like, I sometimes grate ginger on a microplane. But the fresh it's definitely more pungent, but I love it.
Yeah.
It has like more of a spice kick.
Yeah.
I throw some in my smoothies.
Oh yeah.
It's really good.
I have to look for that. Is there anything else that you feel inspired or moved to say to people right now?
I mean, I think, since we touched on the cooking piece, I believe with every cell of my body that that's a really integral part of accessing health. And I think that there are a lot of practitioners, health practitioners that, don't cook, and that's perfectly fine. Like that works for some people. But for me, in my life and what I teach my clients is that until you can really learn how to nourish yourself, there will always be a bit of a barrier between you and your ultimate vibrant, healthy self.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I just think that process of learning how to cook, and it doesn't have to be a complicated gourmet recipe, but just learning some basics and really digging in it's so important. It's so important. So yeah, I just think that piece is worth saying.
Do a little bit of self-plugging. Tell everybody your website and where they can follow you on Instagram, where to look for you.
Okay. So the website's nutritiousAmerica.com.
It's a great
Facebook.
website.
Thank you. Facebook is Nutritious America. On Twitter, it's my name, Abra Pappa. On Instagram, it's my name, Abra Pappa. And on YouTube, there's more. And on YouTube, it's my name, Abra Pappa. And Pinterest, there's a Nutritious America Pinterest for it too. And there's
great.
so much social media.
All right, it's been so great talking to you.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.